Welcome back to another episode of Seattle Sports Show. Wow, there is a lot to talk about. It's been a while since the last episode. We moved the show over to a new channel now, and luckily for me, there is a huge thing to talk about in the first episode on the new channel. If you're listening on the podcast, it's still the same feed. If you are looking for it on the YouTube channel, if you're listening to those on the podcast, you're wondering where the YouTube channel is, the Seattle Sports Show has its own YouTube channel now versus the YouTube channel where I had a bunch of shows sharing the channel. I kind of wanted to separate them and make that a little bit less clutter for people who are looking for specific shows. So the Seattle Sports Show, its own YouTube channel now, and like I said, we got some big stuff to talk about to kick off the new channel. Tyler Lockett released, DK Metcalf traded, Geno Smith traded. Seahawks fans are in shambles right now. But I'm a Seahawks fan, and I'm not, and I'm going to tell you why. Alright, before we get into why I'm not in shambles, it seems like a lot of other Seahawks fans are, we gotta say a big thank you to Tyler Lockett. It's still hard to believe that he has been released. I just didn't see I didn't see that happening a couple of years ago. He was somebody who said he didn't want to have a long career anyways, and it was looking like he was getting towards the end. It looked like maybe we were going to plan on keeping him all the way to the end, but it seems like he still wants to play. And unfortunately, on the business side of things, he just they couldn't pay him or justify paying him what they were about to pay him. So they had to cut him so that they could make some, it's a tough choice, but they have to move in another direction. Right? But, second all time for the Seahawks in so many categories. First in some, he will go down as one of the greatest Seahawks of all time. I'm sure you've seen all the clips out there of all the toe-tapping catches that he makes along the sidelines throughout his career. But, he contributed in so many other ways, just being a good route runner, being a good teammate, being a good returner when he was doing that. It was just time. It was time to move. He didn't have it anymore. You could clearly see over, over the last couple of years that, it was, he's not getting the yards after the catch like he once used to. So you couldn't pay him the 30-something million that he was about to make, getting the production that he was, and hope to build an entire team. But thank you, Tyler Lockett, for your time here in Seattle. You're much appreciated. Let's get to Geno Smith next, actually, because that's what came up next. Geno Smith. Wow. I did not see this coming, and I don't think many Seattle fans did. If you would have said this was a couple weeks ago, I would think that John Schneider and Mike McDonald didn't see this coming. Maybe they did, and that's why they were able to move so fast. Maybe they do have a backup plan in place, but I do believe Geno Smith was their A plan. They wanted to go with Geno Smith. Just John Schneider had said it multiple times throughout this offseason that Geno Smith was their guy. Mike McDonald said it multiple times throughout this season. Clint Kubiak just got hired as offensive coordinator and said he was excited to come to Seattle and work with Geno Smith. Now, and Mike McDonald, just, maybe a week ago, said, that they're working on a deal with Geno Smith and he wished that they could get it done so that he can announce it was done already and stop having to, be asked the questions and answer the questions if Geno Smith is going to be the quarterback of the future. He says, yes, he's going to be the quarterback of the future. I wish I could announce the contract was done already so I could, you guys would stop asking me. Well, here we are, and a contract didn't get done. And then when it didn't get done, Geno asked to be traded. And if we are to believe Bob Condotta, in fact, the Seahawks offered a contract that Geno Smith was looking for, and he declined. He is the one who declined and didn't even put out a counter offer. There were some saying maybe the Seahawks were far apart from what he wanted, saying that maybe the Seahawks were only offering 35 million. Bob Condotta says we offered 40 to 45 million, that range that Geno was looking for, but he said no and didn't even offer a counter offer and requested a trade on a Thursday night, and by Friday afternoon they got the deal done, sending Geno Smith to Pete Carroll with the Raiders. Wow. And then now all weekend long we're wondering, okay, what does that mean for DK Metcalf? Does that mean he wants to stay now? Will he stay now? Will the Seahawks have all this extra money that they can afford to keep DK now? Well, turns out the Seahawks really were ready to move off of him. And again, just another shocking thing. Now you're thinking, okay, well, Geno Smith is already gone. DK has now been traded. You have to compete for a quarterback. Who is the quarterback that is going to want to come here now with Jackson Smith and Jigba really your only viable option as a receiver? Just a week ago, we had 3 great options. We are down to 1. DK Metcalf traded to the Steelers for a second-round pick. So, out of trading Geno Smith and DK Metcalf, we get a second-round pick and a third-round pick. Some people out there might be saying, that wasn't worth it. He didn't get enough back. But look at the history of the NFL. This is what happens. Both players being at the end of their contract, needing new deals. This is how it goes, guys. You trade that player, and the other team is going to have to come up with the new contract. So they are going to not want to give up super high capital for that reason, that they are going to be the ones taking on all the new money. None of the money is going to be going to the old team, right? So that's the price of doing business. And in my opinion, we got what we should have got. I know that the report was out there that the Seahawks were asking for a first and a third. Well, guess what? They were never going to get a first and a third for DK Metcalf. Never, ever. But you have to put that word out there so that way you can work it up to the point where you still get a second. I know somebody like Mike Salk might go on the radio and say, oh, see, they should have traded him a year ago. They maybe could have gotten a first. No, DK's trade value was less last year. Remember that draft? Come on. I know he kept trying to push that there was a first round out there of last year, but remember, all these, you know, other NFL experts kept telling him, no, that's not going to be the case, because we had like 7 or 8 receivers go, in the first round last year, all, thought of very highly. Some of them already putting up numbers, bigger than DK has. So you weren't going to get a first and a third last year. There was just too many good. There was like 3 rounds worth of wide receivers last year. That was not a reality. That was not a possibility. This year, you could get higher value because there is not a receiver in this draft that is making anybody say, wow. This is not a deep wide receiver class. So you can talk a team into giving you a high pick, but probably not a first round pick, because again, they have to negotiate the new contract. And the Steelers are giving DK Metcalf $150 million over 5 years. That's $30 million a year. And at 5 years, I understand that, okay? I understand why we moved on. That's going to take DK Metcalf into his early 30s. I do wish that we were able to keep DK at a contract that would have been, good for the team. My hope was that we were going to get him on a 3-year contract, because maybe he would think that was nice. Remember last time he took a short-term deal thinking, okay, I'll get to another contract where I can get paid big. I was hoping he was thinking, oh, I'm going to get paid pretty big on this contract. I'll take another 3-year deal, and then I'll only be 30, and I'll still have one more shot at getting another big payday. That is not the case. He's getting a 5-year deal from the Steelers. That's not something I would have wanted to do, because then you're talking a quarterback, a wide receiver who is very reliant on his speed, and you're paying into his early 30s where the speed is going to start going down. Now, again, if it would have been 3 years, then I say, okay, that's great, because now we can decide, is he declining? Do we want to keep him around and sign him again, or are we okay to let him walk at that point? And then the other thing is, with the 3 years, then you really get to see how JSN developed at that point. And then you have both of those players coming off, and then you could say, do we want to keep JSN, pay him, and keep going, or do we want to keep DK, or is it even possible to keep both? Probably wouldn't be at that point, but at least you would have gotten the most you could out of DK and JSN together. But that doesn't seem like that was going to be able to be possible if DK just wasn't going to budge, and that's what he wanted. So I feel like they were able to get the max value they were going to get out of a DK. I know the dreams and wishes were out there that you could get a first round, but just look at recent wide receiver trades. That's not a thing. Okay, everybody's going to mention AJ Brown. AJ Brown was even younger, had a couple years left on his deal at the time. Again, not as not when he got traded, there wasn't as strong of a market for receivers as there was when DK still had a couple years left on his deal. So that's why you get what you get. Oh, I forgot I'm so used to having a big thumbnail. I forgot Boom! I got a video, you guys. I got to pull this down so that we can see this. I forgot I got the new setup for anybody who's watching on YouTube. All right, so there you go. You know you're getting you're getting you're getting the value out of the trade that you did for DK Metcalf. Now for Geno, again, third round. Yeah. Guy's 35, right? Or about to be 35. Sounds like, sounds like we were going to offer him 45 million. I wonder how big of a commitment we were actually giving, how many years we were giving. So I think that is going to be a big thing for Geno as well. If it ends up being his deal that he works out with the Raiders, ends up being that 3 to 4 years, the same length as the Pete Carroll contract, then yeah, again, DK, I mean, I love Geno. I love what he's done for the last 3 years. I think he's been really good. I think he's in the top half of the league. But again, Father Time gets all of us, and I'm not one to want to paying top dollar for an aging quarterback who is just, above average. And at an age where their abilities are going to be diminishing. If I'm going to be paying that kind of money, I want it to be to a younger guy who still has upside. Now, does that mean I want Sam Darnold? Which the rumor is out there? No. Not on a big deal like that. We are going for Sam Darnold. I'm hoping it's a much cheaper deal than what Geno is getting or reported to be getting. Okay, if we're going for Sam Darnold, it needs to be he hasn't done anything, or he hasn't done it long enough to earn anything more than a prove-it deal. Now, if we are giving him somewhere between 20 and 30 million, I'll be okay with that. Even if it's a 2-year deal, if you tell me you're giving him 2 years, 60 million, and you put a bunch of the money up front into this year and make it so that it's easy to jump off of him next year with no dead cap, you do that. Because he did show an ability to play behind a bad offensive line, just like we have here in Seattle. He showed that he could do that over in Minnesota. Now, he did have the best receiver in the NFL and Jordan Addison, a great combination of receivers plus a great tight end. We maybe are not going to have that in Seattle now. So maybe it won't work out as well for him playing behind a bad line if it's just JSN. But he has proven that he can play behind a bad offensive line in a very, very similar system and put up numbers. He in the red zone, he threw twice as many touchdowns as DK did last year, 26-13, while only throwing 3 interceptions did Geno's 4. So, he hasn't done enough to prove that he deserves a long-term contract, but he's done enough to prove that you could give him a shot as long as it's not a long-term deal. And as long as you're not using all the cap space that you just freed up on Sam Darnold. So, again, I think this was a really good move to move Geno. We'll see what they do coming out of this. There's so many ways that this can go wrong now. Again, I don't want Sam Darnold on a big money multi-year or long multi-year deal. I've heard the Seahawks have met with Jackson Dart and that meetings went well. If they use their first round pick on Jackson Dart, forget it. I will say automatically that is going to be an F grade on the draft. Okay, don't do that. If that is their thinking, if that is their plan, if they, as soon as they found out from Geno that, hey, he's not coming back, we can't do anything about it. We've already talked to Pete. We saw John Snyder and Pete Carroll talking on the plane for an hour when they were on their way to the combine. Maybe Schneider already had that worked out. Okay, well, Pete says that he'll take Geno, so we have a backup plan in place. If the backup plan is Jackson Dart, that is a bad plan. Do not draft him. And that's what I'm going to say that. In fact, don't draft him at all. Don't use your first round pick on him. Don't use your second round pick on him. They're saying he's going to move up to the first round, so I don't even have to say don't use your third round pick on him, because it sounds like somebody's going to be trying to draft him, maybe possibly in the first round, so he'll, be gone in the second round. And I don't want him there either. I don't want him at that range either. I just don't want Jackson Dart. Oh, gosh. Okay, so, at this point, I'll take Daniel Jones. I'll take Zach Wilson. I'll take a Justin Fields. I'll take Gardner Minshew. I don't want Jackson Dart. That better not be the plan, John Snyder, because if that ends up being the case, then I'm going to come back and I'm going to admit that I am wrong. I've been very critical of John Schneider over the last few years. I'm actually very excited about these moves. The Tyler Lockett, I knew it, you knew it, everybody knew it. This wasn't like oh my gosh, a surprise. Everybody knew that was going to saved up a lot of cap space there. The DK and Geno thing, big surprise, but has me excited. I am not in shambles like many, because again, this is a big chance to reset. Go improve that offensive line. You have the 5th most amount of cap space now. Go do it. Improve the offensive line. Go get some veteran offensive linemen to improve this offensive line. Get at least two offensive linemen, veterans who are good. Go get Will Fries. Okay? At least get Will Fries. And one other interior offensive line. All right? Then you have a couple of other offensive linemen that you can develop, whether you want it to be at the other guard position or the center position, whatever it ends up being. You're obviously going to take care of one of those guard positions with Will Fries. The other veteran that you take care of, whether it's at center or guard, could be either one. But you have plenty of other offensive linemen that you just drafted within the last couple of years that you need to develop, right? And then you could still draft one in this year's draft. At least one, right? To continue to develop and compete for that other job on the offensive line. But then you can use a lot of those picks that we have, because we now have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. 5 picks. 5 picks in the first 92 picks that we can use to really make this defense elite. Go get Manwari. Go get a Harmon. Go get a I don't know. Mine's drawn blank right now, but there's plenty that you can get in this year's draft on the defensive side of the ball. We see they already re-signed Ernest Jones. They re-signed Jaron Reed. I don't think getting rid of Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, and Geno Smith says we're ready to give up 2025. I think they are going to make the defense elite as they can. And then they have to improve the offensive line, and we got to see what they can come up with at the quarterback position. We can find out what they come up with at the next receiver position, no? But I think there's options out there to make that happen. So I don't know. I'm very excited as a Seahawks fan. Very excited. I hope you're excited too. I know I see a lot of Seahawks fans crying, and they're crying. They're sad. They're saying, "Oh no, DK Metcalf is gone. Geno Smith is gone. Tyler Lockett's gone. We're gonna be horrible." That's 3 players. That's 3 players. 3 players that can be replaced. Okay, DK Metcalf. I asked a friend the other day, because we were kind of talking about what kind of contract DK Metcalf should get. I asked him, do you think he's a top 10 receiver? And he said, yeah. And I said, okay, well, do you think top 5? And he's like, yeah, close. If not top 5. And I was stunned at that. And I don't know, maybe it's just a lot of Seattle fans get really attached to the players on the team, right? And kind of overrate them. DK Metcalf to me was not in the top 10. Go look at, rankings, by statistics, not in the top 10. You go look at the NFL, they have those ratings where they survey the players every year. DK Metcalf, not in the top 10 amongst wide receivers. He was barely in the top 20. So that can be replaced. Tyler Lockett was aging. What he meant to the city can't be replaced, but the production on the field, that can be replaced. Geno Smith can be replaced. Was he, or is he, a top, in the top half of quarterbacks in the league right now? I believe he is. But it can be replaced, especially if you improve the offensive line. You can get somebody who has not, lived up to their potential yet to potentially play better. Or you can go get a guy. Again, we played with a 32nd ranked offensive line last year. You can go get a guy, again, that played with the 30th ranked offensive line in Sam Darnold, and see if you improve your offensive line, does he play even better for your team? Again, as long as it's not like a 4 or 5 year multi-year deal, $40 to $50 million deal, which again, I don't think he's going to get, because the Vikings chose to not franchise tag him. They could have tagged him for $40 million. They tried to work out a contract. Didn't happen. They let him go out there and see what he might get on the market, and then they came back, and then they decided not to tag him. So that tells me that they must know, okay, there's not another team that's willing to pay him $40 million, so why would we tag him? If they're really ready to move on to JJ McCarthy, maybe they're saying, well, that $40 million isn't worth it to us, if that's what the cost is gonna be. So it's probably a signal to other teams, well, we don't want to pay $40 million either, so probably not gonna reach that amount. And if you can get him for around $30 million, everything that again, because remember, again, Geno, everybody's talking about, oh, well, we just saved $31 million of the cap right now. Remember, what was it, March 16th? His incentives that he earned were going to kick in, so he was going to be like $44 million against the cap. So you know, if you take that 30, that's significantly less than what you're about to pay Geno, and again, much younger, and just showed that he is possibly capable of helping a team out in a positive way. Again, I need to see more to know that you'd want to give him a long-term deal, but I'd be willing to take a flyer on him. Yeah, okay, my goodness. We covered it. Tyler Lockett gone, DK Metcalf gone, Geno Smith gone. Again, we mentioned it, Ernest Jones officially back, Jarran Reed officially back. Both players signing before free agency, and both of these players signing, I believe, or maybe Jarran Reed happened before DK trade, but I think both of these players, if I remember right, signed after, obviously after the Geno Smith trade, but also after the DK Metcalf trade. Or they might have been right before, actually. I can't remember. Close enough. But either way, they decided before free agency to come back here. So they believe some of your core and veteran players believe that they are on their way to building an elite defense here. So that should tell you something. If they can just get this offense together now, you know, we could have something special. You know, who knows? Maybe this year, again, maybe you take a flyer on someone and you get some production just like you did, like the Vikings of Sam Darnold last year. But with the way we're building things, you know, who knows? We might take some lumps this year, but I don't think it will be long before we are contenders again. All right, let me know what you think of all these moves. It's a lot, right? And I was getting ready to start my draft series again, my mock draft series. Good thing I didn't, you know, attempt to do it in the middle of the day today with all the moves that were happening, but that is coming soon now. All right, we will start doing the draft, the mock draft series, and this year it is going to be different. Though I am not going to be able to, you know, do the draft live in front of you. I'm going to have to do it ahead of time. I'll have the results of my draft and I'll go through each pick. I'm just not going to be able to do it the way I did last year because my work, they moved buildings, so now I have to commute, and the logistics of it, you know, it's not going to work to make. This is a longer video that I'm making today, but I'm not going to be able to do that every day like I did last year, so I'm going to have to cut them half, probably, compared to what I did last year in terms of length. So I'm going to need to come prepared with the names that I drafted over, and then we'll just talk about the reasoning why I went with those players and why I think those players are good, or why, you know, that style draft would be good, type of thing. Yeah, that's just this way it's going to work. Again, I have to commute now. Because of my commute, I have to get my kids ready earlier in the morning. I don't get home until much later once I get done with work, so it's a whole thing. But I hope you're all excited about the mock draft series, doing that again this year, because I had so much fun doing it last year and interacting with you guys and doing all that, okay? But yeah, look forward to that. And, you know, if you're watching on YouTube, well, if you're listening on the podcast, head over to the YouTube, head over to Seattle Sports Show YouTube channel and subscribe over there so I can get my numbers up over there. But if you're just finding this on YouTube, then hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. Again, leave all those comments, whether you're a podcast listener on Spotify or if you are, watching on YouTube. Leave comments so I can respond to what you guys are feeling. How are you feeling? Are you in shambles? Are you so sad? Or do you just think like, oh man, we're going to be a bad team for years to come now? Or are you excited at the idea that, we chance to change the way things are being built on the team, and that things could take big steps forward quickly for us if John Schneider makes the right move? All right, let me know. And we're talking Seahawks, so until next time, go Hawks.